Namova. This question was on my YouTube channel as a comment by Mohit Malaviya. The question is, can we chant Gita shlokas with the sandhi vichhed if we cannot pronounce Sanskrit's lengthy words? Please help. A question I have been asked several times by a lot of learners of the Bhagavad-Gītā, and this is a question. This is a general question about Sanskrit, chanting Sanskrit verses. What's the right way to chant? So I'll answer this in two parts. One is can we do a sandhi vichhed or not, and the other is what's the right way to chant a Sanskrit verse. Now we'll take the example of Anushtup verses, which is the most common meter in Sanskrit texts, including the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. So as you know, the Anushtup is a meter with 4 quarters of 8 syllables each, and there are some rules regarding the whether the 5th, 6th or 7th syllables can be short or long, and also some minute details regarding the 2nd, 3rd and 4th syllables in the 1st and 3rd quarter, and similarly in the 2nd and 4th quarter, but we'll omit those details for now. I'll take the question whether it is correct to perform a sandhi vichhed or not, and how do we chant verses if we cannot perform a sandhi vichhed. So the first part is, no, it's not correct. When we are chanting a verse, it is not correct to perform the sandhi vichhed. For example, take I have this Bhagavad-Gītā with me. This is a publication from 1999, I think, and it was only 4 rupees then, from Gita Press. So you take the 6th verse of the 1st chapter. What's the verse? Yudha manyuscha vikranta uttamaujascha viryavan. Now if we perform a sandhi vichhed, it will become Yudha manyuscha vikranta uttamaujascha viryavan. That is okay for learning what the individual words are. But when you are chanting in a rhythm, that is not correct. So I've heard in some institutes they break the sandhi at the end of a quarter. So they will teach the chanting of the 6th verse as Yudha manyuscha vikranta uttamaujascha viryavan. And the argument that they give is that there's a yati or a pause at the end of the 8th syllable or at the end of the 1st quarter, so it's okay to break a sandhi. However, I don't agree with this argument. Firstly, a yati is a pause for breath, and that means you slow down a bit for taking a breath, and that does not necessarily mean you split the sandhi. So there's a famous channel called the Sanskrit channel, and it's run by a young man who's very fluent in Sanskrit, and he has sung the entire Bhagavad-Gītā, and he has sung it the right way. I checked his enunciation, his pronunciation of this verse and of other verses also. We'll come to another one in a short time. So it would be Yudha manyuscha vikranta uttamaujascha viryavan, and not Yudha manyuscha vikranta uttamaujascha viryavan. That is incorrect. It is okay when you are learning to split the words, to know what the words are. For example, it is Yudha manyu plus cha plus vikranta plus uttamauja plus cha plus viryavan. But when you're chanting in a rhythm, it should be as the flow of a river. As the flow of a river, yes, a yati or a pause for breath, but no sandhi splitting. So Yudha manyuscha vikranta uttamaujascha viryavan, like this. Now let's answer the second part, which is, rather the first part only, but how would we learn to pronounce if we cannot break the sandhi? So let's take a difficult verse, a verse which is difficult to pronounce. This is chapter 2nd and verse number 24. You know what the verse is. Achedyo yamadahyoyam akledyo shoshya evacha nitya sarvagata sthano rachaloyam sanatana. So this is the verse where the Atman is described as achedya, abhedya, akledya, ashoshya, and so on. So we split the sandhi to understand what the verse is. We say achedya ayam adahya ayam akledya, ayam ashoshya eva cha. But if we split the sandhi, we'll lose the rhythm. In this case, achedya, ayam adahya, you lose the rhythm. There'll be more than 8 syllables in every quarter, and the chanting rhythm will break. So the whole purpose of chanting is to chant in a rhythm, and the rhythm of the meter is to be respected. So the only way to chant this verse is achedyo yamadahyo yam akledyo shoshya eva cha. And how to learn this? Well, the only way, the only formula, the only magic wand is practice, abhyasa. Well, if you're learning the Gita, or if you're into Indic texts, you would know the importance of abhyasa. Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutra, abhyasa vairagyabhyam tan nirodha. The dispositions of the mind, the chitta vrittis, the cessation of which is yoga. Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. So how can that be achieved? Abhyasa vairagyabhyam tan nirodha. The dispositions of the mind can be calmed by abhyasa, practice, and vairagya, or dispassion, or lack of attachment. So practice, practice, and practice can lead you to chitta vritti nirodha, or yoga. The other thing, in the Bhagavad-Gītā, what does Krishna say when Arjuna asks him, how can I control my mind, which is very difficult to restrain? So what does Lord Krishna say? Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. The first line is asamshayam mahabaho manodur nigraham chalam. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. So the mind can be controlled by abhyasa and vairagya. So my question is, if abhyasa, or practice, regular practice, can help you control your mind, if abhyasa or regular practice, as per Patanjali, can help you restrain the dispositions of your mind, then what is difficult in pronouncing a verse with abhyasa? It is not difficult at all. So this is in fact much easier. Controlling the mind is much more difficult, but even that can be done with abhyasa. So pronunciation of a verse can be learned with abhyasa. So split the words for your understanding, practice one by one. For example, this verse, verse 24 of the second chapter, you know that it is achedya ayam adahya ayam akledya ashoshya eva cha. So take the words one by one. Achedya ayam, the sandhi would be achedyoyam. So you can repeat it multiple times. Achedyoyam, 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 achedyoyam. Then add the next word. What's the next word? Adahya. So achedyoyam adahyo, achedyoyam adahyo, achedyoyam adahyo, achedyoyam adahyo. And then the next word, ayam. So achedyoyam adahyoyam, achedyoyam adahyoyam. And similarly then akledya, achedyoyam adahyoyam, akledyo, achedyoyam adahyoyam, akledyo, achedyoyam adahyoyam, akledyo. And then ashoshya. So achedyoyam adahyoyam, akledyo shoshya, achedyoyam adahyoyam, akledyo shoshya, achedyoyam adahyoyam, akledyo shoshya. And then evacha. So you will come to achedyoyam adahyoyam, akledyo shoshya evacha. And this is how practice will lead to perfect pronunciation. There is no other substitute. Practice, practice, and practice. Listen from a good rendition, for example, the Sanskrit channel, or listen from your guru or your teacher, and perform regular practice. Break the words for the understanding, break the sandhis, for the understanding, to know what the individual words are, and to practice one word after another together. But when you're chanting, when the final goal should be to chant like the flow of a river, like the flow of a river. Now, some people say that, I'll come to the second part, which is pause at the end of a quarter. Can sandhi be broken there? For example, yudha manyuscha vikranta uttama ojascha viryavan. So can we chant yudha manyuscha vikranta uttama ojascha viryavan? Can we do that? Well, rhythmically there is no difference. You see, there is no extra beat here. Yudha manyuscha vikranta uttama ojascha viryavan. 16 syllables. And also Yudha Manyuscha Vikranta Uttamaujacha Viryavan, again 16 syllables. So the question is, and some institutes, some popular institutes in fact teach this kind of pronunciation by breaking the sandhi at the end of the quarter. So the question is this correct? I'll show you why this is not correct, and the counter example I'll cite is verse 20th of the 8th chapter. What is verse 20th of the, is it verse 20th? No, I think it is verse 20th of the 8th chapter. And what's the word? What's the verse? Parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyakta sanatana. Parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyakta sanatana. Here, if you break the sandhi at the end of the quarter, you'll have one extra syllable. How? The sandhi is parastasmatu bhava anyah avyaktaha avyaktat sanatana. So if you break the sandhi, what will it be? Parastasmatu bhavonya, and then avyakto vyaktat sanatana. But in avyakto vyaktat sanatana, there are 9 syllables. How? Avyakto vyaktat sanatana. 5 and 4, 9. You cannot have 9 syllables in the quarter of an anushtup verse, and your rhythm will break. If you're chanting with a rhythm, with let's say with the beats of a tabla or a metronome, then your rhythm will break down if you split the sandhi here at the end of the first quarter. So the correct pronunciation in rhythm while chanting would be parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyakta sanatana. Parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyakta sanatana. Because the bhava that is being talked about is avyakta. Right? As per all the commentaries, most commentaries on the Gita, I have not referred all, but most commentaries of the Gita take the akara prashlesha there. And if there is an akara prashlesha sandhi at the end of a quarter in the Gita or anywhere else, in the Ramayana or in the Mahabharata, then if you break the sandhi, you will end up with one extra syllable in the next quarter, which will break down the rhythm of your chanting. So this is not the right way to chant. It is a learning aid. The sandhi with ched is useful for learning, it's useful for teaching the individual words, it's useful for understanding the verses, but when you're chanting in a rhythm, when you're practicing, please try to follow the samhita form with the sandhis. So, yudha manyuscha vikranta uttamaujaasya viryavan, or parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana, like this. So that was a short video on how to pronounce the verses of the Bhagavad-Gītā. I hope you liked it. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you again in another video on another topic some other day. Till then, Namo Vah.